What does it really mean to delight your customer? And are we doing this just because we happen to be doing Agile? And if not, why not? That's this week on the Badass Agile podcast. Greetings, team. Welcome to the Badass Agile podcast. I'm your host, Chris Williams. Greetings, everybody. Welcome back. Good to see you again, team. Listen, we hear the words customer delight an awful lot, but are we really doing it? What does it take to do it well? What are some of the things you could do this week to make it real within your tribe and your company? Well, first, let's remember why we're here. To create an elite tribe of leaders who truly serve their clients and communities by doing what matters and what works, relentlessly chasing value and excellence like a badass. There are so many resources about what you need to do to be agile, but we're focused on who you need to become in order to lead teams. So let's hammer down those fundamentals to create a unique and powerful force in this industry. And if this helps you, tell your friends. And don't forget to check out my daily Agile inspirations for leaders by subscribing to my email list. You get a preview of next week's posts and a free video to help you align your week with strength and focus delivered right to your inbox. You can also submit your coaching or leadership questions all at badassagile.com, so go sign up or post your questions today. Here's something to think about. How many meetings did you or will you go to today that were focused on lighting up your customer? What's more likely to happen is that most of your meetings are about discussing architectures and global standards, alignment, processes, procedures, sign-offs, reviews, things that you think will add value, but don't really do anything to increase your worth to the people who pay your bills. They make you safer, but they don't make you any faster, and they certainly don't make you better. Now, as I've always said, it is a failure to reject this kind of work outright. Kill the 1-hour meeting. Instead, work towards achieving outcomes. See, this is the single most important reason, perhaps, why companies can't transform and then fail to perform in an agile atmosphere. So let's spend a few minutes defining customer delight. I think fundamentally, the problem boils down to a disparity between what stakeholders value and what paying customers value. Now, call me naive, but cutting the bottom line is only one way to improve margins. The better way is to increase top line, that is to say, to delight and attract, fascinate and engage your most valuable customers so that they become and remain repeat customers, so they become and remain a free source of marketing via word of mouth, social media, so that they become and remain your most loyal fans who see you as trusted advisors and will make future purchasing decisions based on your opinions and your word alone. Now look, there's no question that we have to keep an eye on the expenses and the leaks that can drain a company's resources. But tell me what you think. If you spend so much of your time cutting corners, saving expenses, and implementing policies that result in unhappy customers who don't get the products they want, don't get the service they deserve, and walk away with a bad impression of your brand, how much does it cost you to replace that customer? No doubt there was a time that if you were the only shop within 100 miles, customers didn't have a ton of choices where they went, but it's been a long time since that was the case. Customers can go to and do wherever and whatever they want. So if you're dropping the ball, why would they continue to choose you? And you can have the tightest and most efficient policies and procedures on the planet, but it all means nothing if your customers walk across the street and go to your competition instead. Enter the notion of delighting your customer. A complete opposite mindset in which everything we do, every action we take, is rooted in a desire to please the people who've chosen to place their trust in our products or services or brand. Delighting the customer is as simple as asking, what will my customer want in this situation? And if you're not sure what that would be, ask them. Delighting your customer not only means knowing your customer, by the way, it also means knowing them in non-empirical means, because not everything is trackable on a survey. And for that reason, knowing your customers requires trusting your frontline employees, because they're the ones who know what the experience is like at ground level. They're handling the complaints. They're taking the orders. They're serving the customer physically in real time and quite often in person. This is the non-empirical stuff because they know the physical touch of a handshake. They witness firsthand the impact of a smile, maybe a joke, versus a scowl or a rejected request or a poorly handled complaint. So when you consider all of this, I don't think there's anyone who would argue that delighting your customer isn't a wonderful idea, but so few people know how to actually make it happen, and fewer still implement the correct practices and mindsets to inscribe it in our culture. Therefore, customer delight is so much more than just using the words, but it does start with words. And I think as Agile practitioners, we should be staking that claim. We should be making that line in the sand that says, first above all else comes the need of the customer. Let's not fail to remember their names and their faces. Who are they? What do they desire? What do they deserve? What pain do they feel that they're desperately trying to alleviate that brings them to you in the first place? Now let's come back to Agile. As an Agile team, we have so many opportunities to put customer delight front and center. Number one, we could do it in our product vision. You see, that's the place where we get to imagine and visualize what the world looks like when we're done with it. And it starts with a happy, delighted, ecstatic customer. It also shows up in our team creed if we choose to build one, and I believe we should. Transcending any and all projects and products is the commitment by the team to remember that first and foremost, we exist to serve and delight the people who keep our company, our salaries, and our teams afloat. Number two, I think that each and every epic and story should have at its heart a customer focus. Too often, I'm sure if you were to dig through the pile of stories that you have, they're focused on some kind of technical enablement, technical remediation, or some kind of process compliance. And at the end of the day, if we were to look very closely, we'd realize that they offer very little value to anybody but the company. Rather, the focus should be on the customer themselves. Number three, I think every sprint can start with a theme or a vision too, simply summarizing the goals, the stories, the epics, and the work we're doing in the next 2-week period to reflect that we're delivering a long-awaited, much-anticipated, much-desired, and most valuable feature, product, or service to the marketplace. And in fact, who's to say that we couldn't then start every single ceremony, every single meeting, every single encounter, the way we start this very podcast with the simple words, let's remember why we're here. Why do we gather every single day? Why do we put forward our best efforts, our best thinking, our innovation, our sacrifice, the time away from families, the time away from our passions, the endless toil, the risk, the endeavor? Why do we do these things? We do them ultimately so that we put something into the world that makes it somehow better. And for whom? For the customer. Now, you could easily argue that the company that we work for is also a customer, and you'd be right. That's true. And we do need to honor their profitability, their margins. Absolutely. But I would argue that even if you get profitability absolutely perfect, even if you nail the target margins, but you have nobody to buy your products or services, it's all meaningless. That's real failure. So let's go beyond these words and these ideals for a moment. How does this become real? Well, it's no surprise that it goes back to trusting your teams. Knowing your customers and what they want is key, but trusting your teams to give it to them is just as crucial. You see, making a commitment to delight your customer can't just be words on a page. It has to be a real commitment backed up with blood at the highest levels of the organization, backed up with real dollars, real risk. It has to be a true commitment that permeates everything we do and starts with letting your teams make decisions on a daily basis. Given a choice, A or B, where A would delight the customer, but at the same time would eat into our margins or possibly even lose money, and then option B, which would be exceedingly good for the company, but lessen or deteriorate the experience to the customer, which must you choose? And in all cases, we must not only allow, but invite and encourage and insist on our teams choosing the former. Customer delight is not something you say, it's something you enable and something you do at every level of the organization. And the best way to lead is to lead by example. You go first. Show people, time after time after time, that if they choose to put the customer first, they've made the right decision. We celebrate them, not chastise them. The very best companies have those kinds of stories built into their culture and their history. It's written on the walls. It's written online. It's in the employee manuals. It's part of the training. Even taking an extra 5 minutes to please a customer who ends up not buying anything is still time worth wasting, because those people will tell a story to their friends, and next time they're passing your shop, or you show up in a search result online, they're going to remember you, and they're going to seek you out again and again. So how do you, as an Agile leader, create an atmosphere of customer delight? Well, first, you need to make those agreements with the stakeholders, with the bosses, with the executives. If you're serious about customer delight, you're going to have to let the teams make the daily choices that result in delighted customers. So it's perfectly acceptable to ask them to sign something in premise, in blood, that says, I, so-and-so, hereby declare that I put the customer's experience and happiness first and foremost above all else. And I commit to doing whatever it takes, not just the ordinary, but the extraordinary, the unusual, the inventive, the unthinkable in pursuit of that goal. Now remember, I always say that Agile begins with willing minds and projects that fit. You can't get everyone to sign this piece of paper, but when you find willing minds, I'm willing to bet that you can. Start there. Share that agreement with the team. Let them know where that support came from, and then ruthlessly in every single meeting, in every single vision, in every single story, feature, requirement, ask the question, how does this delight the customer? And if you can't find the answer, or the answer is not at all, then change your decision, change your path, do the other thing, do something different. Now you might ask, why would I go to all this trouble? Why would I make this kind of commitment in an environment where nobody else is doing it, where it sounds so risky and so out of the ordinary and so outside custom and convention? Well, it's for exactly that reason, because this is what 99% of the companies fail to do. And because they fail to do it, they suffer needlessly. They suffer with customer churn. They suffer with customer abandonment. They suffer with bad reviews, firefighting, damage control, instead of spending those critical efforts where it belongs, on delighting the customer. This subtle shift in mindset and behavior is one of the differences that makes all the difference. So put some of these ideas and these beliefs and practices into use today. Folks, thank you for listening. You can reach out at badassagile.com or find me on Twitter at badass_agile, and I'll see you next time.